Welcome back. We're diving deep into the source material around Cursor today, looking at their absolutely wild growth journey through the lens of CEO Michael Truell's experience.
That's right.
Our mission here is really to unpack the playbook. How do you operate? How do you even survive when you're building a company during one of these iPhone moments for the market?
Yeah, a surge that's just incredibly fast, incredibly disruptive.
Stressing global infrastructure, things like that.
And it's crucial to get the context here. I mean, we're looking at one of the fastest growing companies anyone's really seen in this whole new AI wave.
Right.
The scale they hit and just the sheer speed they hit it forced them into solving problems usually reserved for, tech giants that have been around for decades.
Hyperscale while basically still a startup.
Exactly. Pure mayhem, but strategic mayhem, maybe.
Okay, let's unpack that mayhem. If you're going to build the AI speed, you need a really strong why.
So what were the twin engines driving them back in 2021, early 2022? Well, the first one was super practical. It was the existence proof that AI could actually be useful now.
Like seeing is believing.
Totally. Trying GitHub Copilot was the key moment. They saw it wasn't just some lab experiment, it worked.
It belonged in the real world, in the tools people use.
Right, not locked away in research papers. It showed AI should be built into developer workflows.
Okay, that's the practical trigger. And the second driver. That sounds more like a leap of faith almost.
It was, yeah. A philosophical bet, really. It was all about scaling laws.
The idea that models just keep getting better.
Exactly. The core belief was that even if the whole field ran out of new ideas tomorrow, the models would still improve just because of more data and more compute.
That's some serious conviction.
It is, and that fundamental confidence let them make that huge initial bet.
And that bet started with this grand vision, right? Cursor for X.
Right.
What was the thinking there?
The core idea was this. They assumed that for every type of knowledge work, engineering, law, finance, you name it, one company would emerge.
One winner per vertical.
Yeah. Define the product, win the distribution, and then, crucially, create this flywheel.
Ah, the flywheel. Feeding data back.
Exactly. Use the distribution to get data and capital, feed that back into model research, push the boundaries of what the AI could do. Winner takes all, essentially.
But, okay, here's the twist.
Mm-hmm.
Their first move wasn't coding. It was mechanical engineering. CAD systems.
Oh.
Why? That seems counterintuitive.
It does, right. It was a classic avoidance tactic, looking back.
How so?
They basically assumed coding would be instantly dominated by Microsoft and GitHub Copilot.
Okay, so run from the giant.
Pretty much. They wanted a less crowded space, maybe somewhere a bit sleepy, as they put it, so they started trying to build models for 3D CAD systems.
Designing parts of the CAD system even.
Yeah, trying to improve productivity within those complex tools.
Sounds like a technical swamp. But the sources say the real killer was something else. Founder market fit. They called it horrible. What did that actually feel like?
It means they just didn't get the user, intuitively. The CEO had this great line, the blind man and the elephant problem.
Right? Feeling around in the dark?
Exactly. They didn't have that deep instinctual grasp of what a mechanical engineer actually does all day, what their pain points really are.
So they were solving technical puzzles without knowing the real problem.
Sort of, yeah. They joked later they should just been interns for 6 months first, get that ground level feel.
And that lack of intuition hit a wall with the tech itself, didn't it? The LLMs back then weren't good for 3D stuff.
Useless, basically. Out-of-the-box models couldn't handle 3D geometry or CAD formats, so they ended up sinking months into just scraping data, building custom models.
So to get something basic working.
Right. They literally described it as giving them PTSD, all that effort for minimal payoff.
Okay, so the pivot back to coding wasn't just courage, it was almost necessary survival.
I think so. And what's really interesting, the key insight there, is about the limits of the tooling at the time. Meaning that cold start problems starting in a new vertical, it can be completely insurmountable if the core AI models aren't ready and you don't have that deep domain sense.
Because you waste all your time just building the foundation.
Precisely. Building the data layer, fine-tuning models.
Yeah.
You never get to the point of actually winning users or distribution. So, yeah, they wisely retreated to the ground they actually understood, programming.
Which brings us neatly to section 2. how they actually won in that coding space, which they initially avoided.
And they won through just ruthless, narrow focus. It's really striking.
How so, compared to others at the time?
Well, back then, you had a lot of startups going for the, let's call it the science fiction angle.
Like, build me an entire app from scratch. Full AI engineering.
Exactly. Or completely rewriting how programming works, designing new paradigms. Cursor deliberately avoided all that.
They just wanted to be better than Copilot.
Way, way, way better was their mantra. Build a vastly superior product, but crucially within the developer's existing flow. No revolution, just radical improvement.
And speed was critical. They were super expedient.
Totally. Hack on hack was the phrase used. Just get something out there, get momentum, learn from users. Perfection was the enemy.
So how do they enforce that speed? Internally.
They actually used their monthly investor update, funny enough.
The one they joked nobody read.
Yeah, that one. But it wasn't really for the investors. It was an internal commitment device, a deadline. It forced them to ship.
Wow. So how fast are we talking? From deciding, okay, coding it is, to launch?
A couple of months, maybe slightly more. Deciding on the idea, building the first IDE from scratch initially, then pivoting to a fork and getting a beta out. Insanely fast.
Okay, building their own editor. That was a huge call, right? Forking VS Code instead of just making an extension?
Oh, massively controversial at the time. Everyone said developers are too tied to their editors, they won't switch. Inertia's too strong.
But Cursor thought that was wrong. Why?
Because they saw the proof point right in front of them. They'd switched.
Ah, from Vim to VS Code.
Specifically because of Copilot. They realized that extreme utility, that quantum leap in productivity AI offered, it could overcome editor loyalty.
The bar was high, but not insurmountable.
Exactly. If the product was genuinely, demonstrably better, developers would switch. And that bet paid off.
Now, here's the part that I find really fascinating. The discipline to stay focused. They knew they wanted to get into models eventually, right? But they resisted.
They did, very intentionally. They understood that early on, the most valuable asset isn't the best model, it's distribution. It's the user relationship.
Owning the surface area.
Right. Own the editor, own the workflow. You can always plug in better models later, buy them, build them, whatever. But if you don't have the users locked in first...
You've got nothing to plug them into.
Precisely. That clarity, that prioritization in the face of all the AI hype back then, that's a hallmark of hypergrowth execution.
Okay, so they build this way, way, way better product. They focus relentlessly, and then they hit product market fit. And that's when the mayhem really starts.
Oh, yeah. Chaos time. The growth anecdotes are just wild.
Tell us about some of them. The cloud takedown.
Yeah, the famous one, they literally took down one of the, the big three cloud providers. Their API request volume just overwhelmed the provider's capacity.
That's insane for a company that young.
Completely. But maybe even more telling personally is the story about the iPad.
The iPad?
Yeah, someone physically showed up at their tiny nondescript office.
Like walked up to the door.
Walked up and taped an iPad to the window with one message displayed on the screen, cursors down.
Wow.
Oh.
That's dependency. That's not just a cool tool anymore.
Exactly. That's mission-critical infrastructure for that person, for probably thousands of developers. And that pressure forced them into these two big scaling phases.
Phase one being internal chaos.
Pretty much. Tiny team, mostly inexperienced in running massive services, suddenly dealing with infrastructure nightmares.
Like that very, very large Kubernetes cluster.
Right. Stuff they had no business managing at that stage. And they had to build everything custom, almost.
Like file sync? They built their own Dropbox.
Multiple mini Dropboxes, according to the CEO, just baked into Cursor to handle the specific needs of an AI-integrated editor. The tech debt was probably astronomical.
But shipping features was priority one.
Always. Features that use the AI got users excited, not building perfect, scalable infrastructure that came later, or rather was forced upon them.
Which leads to phase two. They stabilize internally and immediately start breaking the API providers.
Yeah, the LLM providers themselves, they grew so fast their usage became a really high double-digit % of some major providers' entire API revenue.
Just think about that. One startup accounting for like 20–30% or more of a major AI company's API business.
It completely changes the game. Scaling stops being just a tech problem
It becomes a relationship problem.
and a contract negotiation problem, a financial planning problem for both sides. Suddenly, these big API providers are having to make huge decisions, financing, buying hardware, planning capacity based almost entirely on the unpredictable demand of this one startup, Cursor.
Scrambling their own business model.
Totally.
So, okay, how did Cursor deal with that? When the main providers are buckling under your demand, where do you get the capacity?
This is where they got really clever. A mix of technical strategy and almost financial arbitrage.
Arbitrage, like with API tokens?
Kind of, yeah. They realized that tokens for the same underlying model, say Anthropic's Sonnet, could actually be bought from lots of different places.
Not just from Anthropic directly.
Right. From Anthropic, from resellers, maybe through cloud provider partnerships, all over the world. So they became masters of supply chain management.
Hunting down tokens globally.
Literally hunting out all the Sonnet tokens that exist in the world, as they put it. Spreading the load, diversifying their suppliers, so if one platform had issues, they wouldn't go down completely.
Like high-stakes commodity trading, but for AI compute.
You got it. Token arbitrators.
And even the boring stuff broke, right? Like databases, they hit RDS limits. Why is that such a big deal?
Because RDS, Amazon's relational database service, it's designed to be the easy, managed, scalable database solution for almost everyone.
It's supposed to just work.
Right. If you hit the absolute maximum capacity of the biggest RDS instance they offer, you are in rarefied air. You've outgrown what 99.9% of companies ever need.
So you're forced into the really complex stuff.
Exactly. Custom scaling, sharding databases, things normally only done by giants like Netflix or Facebook, they had to ditch RDS entirely and move to planet scale.
And the lesson there was?
That even the huge public clouds, the ones that seem infinitely scalable, are kind of figuring it out on the fly when you get to that absolute bleeding edge of demand.
So connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Scaling an AI rocket ship isn't just code. It's supply chains, relationships, finance.
Yeah, you become deeply entangled with the financial health and infrastructure choices of your partners. You need radical flexibility just to keep the lights on.
Okay, let's pivot. How do you build a team that can handle that level of chaos and complexity?
Talent. Crucial. And they're deliberately becoming multi-product now, right? Bugbot, CLI tools.
The AI coding bundle.
Right. Which requires a different kind of team structure, more cross-functional work, especially around collaboration features as they move into team usage.
And their hiring process sounds intense. They still do a 2-day on-site project, even with over 200 people.
Still do it. And it's not just coding exercises. It's deliberately designed to test things that standard interviews miss.
Like what?
Okay, you get a desk, a frozen snapshot of the code base, 3 project options, and basically, go.
Figure it out.
Yeah. They're testing your end-to-end ability. Can you actually take something from idea to working code? How's your agency? What do you do when you're just left alone? And crucially, product sense.
What would you choose to build? What seems important?
Exactly. What would this person build if left in a vacuum for 2 days? It gives them and the candidate, frankly, really high signal on fit.
And before they had this process, getting those first, say, 10 hires, sounds like it involved some pretty crazy recruiting stunts.
Oh, the desperation was real. The stories are amazing, flying across the world to meet someone after they'd already said no.
Just showing up.
Pretty much. And when that still didn't work for one key person, they apparently invented a fake future dinner event with famous
A
researchers.
fake dinner.
Months down the line. Just to keep the conversation going, keep the hope alive, until they finally landed them. It shows the extreme lengths needed to get that foundational talent when everyone's fighting for the same few people.
They also use M&A differently, don't they? Less about market share, more about talent.
Primarily, yeah. Acquiring companies is often just the most efficient way to acquire a whole team of incredibly talented people who happen to be working on something relevant.
Like the Supermaven deal.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
Supermaven's team included the person who built Tab 9.
Tab 9, that predated Copilot, right?
Exactly. It was one of the very first AI code completion tools. So acquiring them wasn't just about getting their tech, although that was complementary.
It was about getting that specific person and their team's expertise.
Right. Merging Cursor's product focus with arguably the deepest technical heritage in code completion models out there. Huge strategic win. Talent and tech combined.
So bringing this all together for someone listening, what's the big takeaway? It feels like Technical brilliance isn't nearly enough.
Not even close.
Yeah.
The lesson from Cursor is that radical technical innovation must be matched by equally radical strategies for organization, scaling, and talent. You just can't use the old playbook.
They challenged everything.
Every orthodoxy. Developers won't switch editors. Wrong. Managed cloud services are infinitely scalable. Wrong at the extreme edge. Standard hiring works for the speed. Wrong.
Okay, let's wrap up with that philosophical question one of their candidates asked. It's a good one. If Cursor disrupts software, but it's made of software, is it an Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail?
It's a great question, and the CEO's answer was very grounded, I thought.
What was the gist?
Basically, look, full automation, replacing developers entirely, that's still so far away, decades maybe.
There's a long way to go.
A really long, messy middle, as he put it. Professional software development, especially in big companies, is still incredibly inefficient. There's so much low-hanging fruit for AI to improve things before we get to full replacement.
So plenty of room to run before the snake catches its tail.
Exactly. But that led to the final, maybe most important, strategic point for them.
Which is?
The market isn't going to stabilize after this AI boom. It's going to have continuous iPhone moments, wave after wave of disruption.
So you can't just build one great product and rest.
No way. The company has to be built, fundamentally, to continually innovate and disrupt, because the moment they stop, the moment they optimize for stability, they're kaput. Someone else disrupts them.
And that constant pressure is actually their advantage against incumbents like Microsoft.
He argues, yes, it's hard for a giant, stable company to embrace that level of permanent chaos.
Which leaves us with a really challenging final thought, doesn't it?
It does. If your very survival depends on constantly creating disruptive products in a market defined by permanent chaotic change, how does any organization built for stability truly cope?
Whether it's the incumbent you're attacking,
or even your own company, as it inevitably tries to mature and stabilize. How do you build an organization that thrives not just on growth, but on essentially permanent revolution? That seems like the core leadership challenge of this entire AI era.